David Toulis.
Chief Deputy 15 years.
This is David Toulis. We have here in the studio Sheriff Jim Hammond of Hamilton County, and we have you, my listener, I know have questions for you. The sheriff for 7 years. You were a chief deputy for some years before that. Could you tell us a little bit about what your analysis of Mohammed Abdulaziz's attack on the military installations here in Chattanooga?
Well, of course, I think everybody would agree that, first of all, there was terrorism involved. He created an atmosphere for terrorism. I think it was also domestic terrorism in that he was homegrown. He was born and raised here, and it's certainly terrorism, certainly domestic. What you probably not going to hear, and this is Jim Hammond speaking, is I believe this was Islamic terrorism, Islamic domestic. That to train his faith, the beliefs of the faith that he recognizes, the things that led up to this particular day and what he did, all of that points to me that this was a perfect example of what we call domestic Islamic terrorism.
So Mohammed Abdulaziz had personal problems. He had a little bit of alcohol consumption. He had some debts. He
would show that. I think that his mental health, his faith training that he had, his concern about whether or not he could reach the heaven that the Islamic Muslims speak of, required him to do some pretty drastic things in order to get that accomplished.
So it was a religiously inspired attack. It wasn't just political. It was from the political religious system of Islam.
I think that was certainly part of it, yes.
Is it fair to say that this analysis is being overlooked by the national narrative that is coming out of Chattanooga and the FBI office?
I think there are many people out there that misunderstand what the long-term purpose of Islam is, and that is that the world must be Islamic, that Allah must rule supreme in all religions. I spent several years living in the Middle East, working with these folks. There's a lot of good folks out there who are Muslim, who are not I might put it hell-bent to try to kill all Christians or anybody of any other race. But the tenets of the faith, for anybody who studies the tenets of Islam, know that that is one of the strong tenets of the faith, is that the whole world must be Islamic and bow to the knee of Allah's will.
Was Mohammed Abdulaziz radicalized, or was he just a faithful, good, routine, ordinary kind of Muslim?
Well, I don't think the reports are in to show that. I think it could be both.
It seems to me that my listener should be much more concerned to hear that he was not radicalized, which seems to be the tenor of the federal analysis. He was not radicalized. If that's the case, then we have really a lot to worry about. My listener does, for his personal safety, from regular Muslim people if they are faithful to the tenets of Islam.
Well, there are a number of Muslims in the world, probably 1.2 billion, depending on the numbers you're looking at. The average Muslim out there is what I would refer to as a secular Muslim. They're not out to create jihad. They're not out to try to kill their neighbors. But if you look at the tenets of the faith, and that requires you to study what it says.
And you have.
And you follow that, and I have. I've spent a number of years looking at it. If you follow the tenets of the faith, it does say that there are certain things that must be accomplished. One of them is every good Muslim who wishes to gain paradise must not interfere with Allah's will that the whole world has to become Islamic, and that other faiths will either fall in line or they're to be destroyed.
And the Muslim creed is works-oriented. Christianity is quite a contrast. Christianity posits God's grace, God saving men by his good grace, but not of anything that they've done. The Mohammedan system is one of works. You have to do certain things, follow certain rites, practice certain rituals, and you then obtain salvation. And if you've sinned, you can obtain forgiveness by a great act of self-denial, which is jihad.
That is correct.
Well, so the attack on Chattanooga was in some way a clash of worldviews, right? A clash of systems. The Muslim system attacking the Western/Christian system. Can you talk about that?
Well, first of all, this particular young man who did this heinous act, we don't know what was in his mind. He's gone. But I can tell you, if you look at what he surrounded himself with in terms of his training, in terms of his training, in terms of what the tenets of the faith are. All of these add up to show you that he, in seeking paradise as he sees it as a Muslim, felt like one of the only things he could do is to guarantee himself paradise was to not only go out and follow the tenets of that faith, which would be to destroy infidels, which guarantees you almost a pass.
The attack was an expiation of his sins, a paying of his sins.
I think that's correct.
Well, Sheriff Hammond,
this is not an official report from the FBI.
No,
They're still doing their study. I'm telling you,
this is your analysis.
Yes.
Well, Sheriff Hammond, you're the most important and influential person in the county because of the office you hold as sheriff. You are. I say that, and now I want to ask you a question. Were you in the loop as far? Were you somehow in the intel loop regarding this particular non-state actor, or were you surprised to hear about him on that day?
Well, certainly, I was surprised. I don't know that anybody was in the loop in terms of he was on the radar screen. That may be true, but the FBI is going to keep all that under wraps till they do their investigation and release their formal. So I can't tell you. I can tell you Jim Hammond, the sheriff, was not in the loop as to this one particular young man, whether or not he was on anybody's radar.
Well, seeing that you are the most important person in the county, militarily speaking, you ensure the public order. Should you be, or should you have been informed of his presence here?
No, I don't think that would have been practical given the number of Muslims who live in our area. There's a great number here, and we can't certainly be informed on each one being tracked. Occasionally, I will get intel reports like the chief in the city and other chiefs do. But in this particular case, this one, I was not privy to any information on his activities.
Well, in a way, we could say that that's good, because if you did have access to that giant pool of data that the federal government collects, you would be, as a politician, as a law enforcement official, very tempted to use that for other purposes.
Well, I don't want to get into the federal business. They have their role. I have mine. My job is confined to this county and this state. I would certainly appreciate an update if anything comes about that is going to risk the safety and security of my citizens by the federal government. And normally I do get that, I can tell you. I'm not sure to what degree the FBI were informed of that, or the CIA, or any other agency.
Well, we have a federal fusion center here in Chattanooga, and there are several in the South. The Sheriff's Department is very well connected with the federal, you might say, the federal empire in its digital surveillance. To what extent does the department use digital analysis and data mining from the NSA?
Well, again, I'm not at liberty to tell you what we do use. I can tell you that we do on occasion get information that is helpful to a case that is relevant to Hamilton County.
Is that under a warrant?
Not necessarily.
So data mining from the NSA and other federal military and other reconnaissance agencies.
We are not routinely involved in that.
Okay.
As the Sheriff Office of Hamilton County.
Sheriff Hammond, whom do you represent in your office?
Well, the sheriff, of course, as you and I were talking earlier, comes from the old English word shire-reef. Shire being a geographic location like a county, and a reef being a lord who is appointed to protect the people in that case, on that kind of thing. So, as the shire-reef, which we have shortened to become sheriff, sheriffs came to this country as an organization that was to protect the people. Now, sheriffs have certain constitutional responsibilities in this state. There are 95 counties, there are 95 sheriffs. Primarily, my responsibilities as sheriff is, first of all, a keeper of the jail. I am to protect the inmates who are in that jail against being harmed, but I'm also to protect the citizens from being harmed by those inmates. So that is a responsibility constitutionally of the sheriff. Sheriffs are elected, which means I answer to the will of the people. Every 4 years, the people get to decide whether they like the sheriff or not. Sheriff is also a protector of the courts. My job is to see that there are officers who are there in those courts to protect the citizens as they come to do business with the courts, and the judges from anybody who might want to harm them. Sheriff is also a server of the process. I must see that all the legal documents are served that are brought to my attention by the courts in any way that they're brought there. And then the normal duties that you would find of a sheriff, such as running patrol division, narcotics, undercover operations. In my particular case, we've got about 15 different divisions that do this, from underwater dive team to mounted horse patrol to reserve groups, and on and on and on. Well,
because you're elected, is it fair to say that you represent the people, or do you represent the state?
I represent the people in
authority as the sheriff to kick out anyone in Hamilton County who is offending the rights of the people, offending their peace, security, and happiness?
Well, I don't know that kick out is the right term.
That's the term I'm using.
I have the authority, and I must execute that authority if the law is being broken, whether it's a state law or whether or not it falls under our federal constitution.
And so that means that we're talking about you have the authority to eject and repel and remove parties that are private parties that are violating the law, as well as state parties. In other words, as well as government entities.
What you mean by remove? If I'm executing a lawful order, then the people to obey that order. If they don't, then the sheriff has the power to take them into custody.
Well, let's say the IRS is abusing process against businessmen who are my listeners here in Chattanooga, and you are made clear to you that they're taking shortcuts. They're not exercising, not letting the taxpayer or the person exercise his rights. That agent or that office could be summarily removed by you if you are representative of the people.
If in fact there is a violation of the law that the sheriff is obligated to enforce, then I must do my duty. It would depend on each individual case, so I can't really speculate on whether it's the IRS or someone else. I would have to look at each individual case and make a judgment whether my responsibilities fall within the constitutional responsibilities of a sheriff within this state.
So, but if you are represented by the people, you're elected by them, your duty is to protect their rights and their property effectively.
It is to protect them. So much of rights depends on what the law says. I'm to see that they are not unduly harmed or unduly held against their will, that there has to be a violation of the law before I can execute judgment.
I've heard very few complaints, Sheriff Hammond, about Hamilton County's Sheriff's Department regarding abuse of members of the public. We hear across the country many stories, see many videos of policemen battering women in summer skirts and picking up people that they've gassed, gassing constrained inmates and the like, often by municipal corporation departments, police departments, which are different from sheriff's departments. Why do we talk about what your government of this agency is doing that we don't hear these reports in the media?
Well, again, you said a lot here, and I can't confirm or deny the things you're saying because I don't have a specific. If you present me with a specific and it's in my jurisdiction and I happen to know the evidence based on what's being done there, then I could discuss that case with you. Very frankly, I'm a brother to fellow police officers who are city police officers, municipal police officers, federal police officers. I'm not putting myself in a position where I stand isolated and they're not doing their job and I am. I won't say that. What I'm saying is I will look at each case in its totality and make a decision. Does it affect my role as a sheriff, and how should I respond?
We've got a call. Caller, you're on the air.
Sheriff Hammond, it's nice to hear you on the radio. I'm a proponent of the sheriff and the sheriff's department, as I'm a student of history. And there's been a movement to eliminate sheriff's departments all over the country by the politicians who want to federalize the police.
That's correct.
And on my phone, I have on speed dial the sheriff's department, just in case I get pulled over by a statutory entity called the local police or the feds or whatever, because I know the sheriff is there to protect my individual constitutional rights and to enforce that highest law. What is your feeling on these individuals that are trying to abolish the sheriff's departments at the federal government level, politicians and so on, and the idea that evidently the federal government can't protect its citizens? $500 million a year goes to the military, and 24 Muslim radical terrorists flew their planes into the World Trade Center. And with all this NSA money, a radical Muslim somehow slipped by and killed 5 U.S. Marines in our backyard. So why isn't the FBI sharing information with you? Are they that inefficient and effective that you maybe have to call out the militia or a posse comitatus and deputize us to protect their own people here, since evidently the federal government can't?
Well, go ahead, Sheriff Hammond.
Well, you're talking about several issues here. Again, some issues go to what the federal law is. Some go to what state law is. Some go to what the constitutional responsibility of the sheriff. All of that taken together. You ask a bunch of questions in one. I can tell you this, that I have the highest respect for the FBI. I've worked with them. I've been through some of their training. I understand what their role is, and they have a certain role at the federal level. I have the highest respect for state officers, the TBI, and those who work at the state level. I have the highest respect for the local law enforcement, my brothers who are trained at the same training I received. So I think the average police officer does a great job. When you look at nationwide, there's close to 1 million police officers in this country, and there's over 300 plus million people. We do a good job of enforcing the laws. When you talk about, I don't want to use, I don't remember your exact words, but you hear all these reports you say across the U.S. I don't see those same stats that it's just rampant police abusing citizens. I think most police and most citizens work hand in hand to see that there's safety and security across this country.
Well, it seems that sheriff's deputies have much more reason to respect the person of someone, let's say, stopped on the side of the road than a police officer, because his authority, which is you are accountable to the people, and you have an interest in making sure that if laws have to be enforced, that they be not done rigorously, but fairly and as necessary. Police departments are not in that same form. They are, the chiefs of police, such as Fred Fletcher, are hired, and he's accountable to the mayor as a part of the executive branch of a city corporation. So you have every reason to mind the operation of the officers, the care of the officers in public.
I would agree with one thing in that, and that is, as an elected official, I do serve directly and closer to the people who can make a decision whether or not they like their sheriff every 4 years. Fred Fletcher works for the mayor, was hired by the mayor, but the mayor is elected by the people. So the people still have the final say-so in who's going to govern them at the local level. When you talk about police departments, you are correct. Most police departments have a hired chief that's either by the city council or the city manager or the mayor, but all those people are elected. And citizens who believe that their police are not treating them fairly, they still have the power of the vote if they'll exercise it.
Well, it seems quite oblique when you have to go through the mayor. Well, Sheriff Hammond, I want to go back to the question regarding the National Security Agency and the whole idea of parallel construction. Parallel construction is when a local jurisdiction uses illicit, well, I would call illicit data mined from the surveillance apparatus of the national government, which at least one federal judge has said Court of Appeals said is illegal. And what it does, it launders the information and creates a plausible narrative for the purpose of the court for evidence against a defendant. Again, it's illicit material that allows the investigator to trace and create a plausible factual base in the evidence trail in the prosecution. Does Hamilton County Sheriff's Department use parallel construction, or do you have a strong view about that process?
If you mean by parallel construction, and I think from what you said, what I interpret you're saying is, do we use this mined data to formulate how we deal with inmates or how we deal with prisoners? I can tell you.
Well, not prisoners, but people who are suspects or fugitives.
However we might use it, I can tell you that we do not, as a routine, do that in the sheriff's office. I can't speak for the city police or anyone else, but from time to time, I do receive updates, intel from NSA and other agencies, and we take that into consideration as part of our overall responsibility. But at the local level, whether it's the City of Chattanooga Police or the Hamilton County Sheriff's Department, we still fall under the will of the people through the vote. Whether it's the vote for their legislator, whether it's the vote for their local school board, whether it's a vote for their mayor, or whether it's a vote. So the people still retain the right to put men and women in office that they feel like are doing the job they want to see done.
What about the use of federal use of planes that detect cell phone locations? Has the county and your department taken advantage of that data? All
intel has its place depending on what the law that's written for that intel prescribes. I do know that right now the big issue is the drones. Are drones something that should be used as part of law enforcement? They are a tool. They can be used for good or for bad. I do plan to seek to have drones used for illegal activities. I will have to jump through a lot of hoops to do that. I will have to follow what the law says. I will have to seek the proper court orders to be able to utilize that kind of equipment.
Would that all be for surveillance?
It could be
gathering visual evidence.
It could be, depending on what we're dealing with.
Can you be specific as to one scenario in which a drone might be used by the county?
If we know, for instance, that someone is out there illegally moving drugs from one location to another, maybe even across state lines, drones could be very effective in tracking that as part of the investigation. But it has to be part of an ongoing investigation that is approved by law.
Talk about the drug war, Sheriff Jim Hammond. Is the drug war something that has benefited my listener, or has it worked to reduce his rights and reduce his liberties of movement and other?
Well, I don't think we'll ever get on top or win, I might say, the drug war unless we first win it through the hearts of the people on what they will tolerate in illegal drugs. Illegal drugs would disappear tomorrow if the people themselves did not want to spend the money to use those drugs. It is a war. It is a big war. I take you back to China about the time of World War II when the whole country was about to fall apart because of the opium epidemic. Now, the Chinese dealt with it in a way that we would never seek to see happen in this country. They literally would kill all the drug addicts. And so they eliminated the problem by killing anybody. There's countries in the world today that will execute you on the first time you're caught with illegal drugs. That's not the way we operate in this country. We have freedoms, but with those freedoms comes abuse. And law enforcement is there to try to stem the tide of abuse, so you cut down on the amount of injuries and death and addictions that come to the people. So you do that with various tools you have, but those tools, the oversight from the people needs to come on hiring men and women as their sheriff and as their legislature and as those who pass the laws, that they pass the reasonable laws the people approve of.
We have a call. Caller, you're on the air. Make it quick.
I just have another question. Militarization of the Sheriff's Department and police, your position on that, and also data mining. If you fly over a field and somebody's growing marijuana and you didn't get a specific search warrant for that, will you use that against them? And it's not. What about checkpoints where, and I call it, they're sniffing their underwear. They're trying to find something. They're fishing. Where are you going? Where are you coming from? Let me check your papers, like Nazi Germany.
Okay, make it one question, please.
Happen to find something. Is it okay just to question everybody at checkpoints to try to find something, or fly drones over to see if somebody's doing something illegal? And was not a great man who once said, "Those who are willing to sacrifice their liberty for security deserve neither liberty nor security"? Okay, thanks.
I think as we become a smaller world community, more and more the issue comes up: what personal freedoms have to be limited to secure the rights of everybody else? And that's a thorny question, because it gets into the idea, is there a time when you have to restrict somebody's liberty for the good and welfare of everybody? And I don't mind telling you, I think that's right in some cases. For instance, immigration. I don't think we should have wholesale open the borders, let whoever comes and goes. I think we need to have restrictions on immigration to protect this nation. That can come all the way down to the state and the local level. There needs to be certain laws that protect everybody. One of them is, for instance, if we said there's no speed limit, people can do whatever they want, you'd see the death rate it would go overnight, become horrendous, the known things. You have to have restrictions on people's liberty, not to be able to drive their car as fast as they want, where they want. You can apply that to drugs. You can apply it to speeding. You can apply it to DUI checkpoints, whatever you want. There are certain laws that must be there to ensure the welfare and safety of everybody.
Well, has the modern surveillance and warfare state grown in such a way, Sheriff Jim Hammond, that it causes you, as a Christian and a man acting in the constitutional office, does it cause you alarm?
It causes me alarm only when I see that there are abuses of the laws that are very thoughtfully put before the people, and the people accept them based on who they send up there to make those laws. And then we see that law might be abused. For instance, you go back to the IRS. We know right now there's been horrible abuses of the IRS in who they were targeting in the last few years. That's an abuse that needs to be dealt with. So you don't look at just the IRS. You look at abuses within these individuals, whether it's police, whether it's the IRS, whatever agency is. If they're abusing, they need to be taken to task.
When county sheriff's deputies, Jim Hammond, make a stop or an arrest, are they largely enforcing county ordinance, state law, or federal statute?
Well, there's no county ordinances. Counties can't pass ordinances. Counties operate on state law only. Cities can have ordinances. So in the sheriff's department, anything my men do to be legal, it has to apply under a state law. So what we do in carrying out our job as sheriff, I demand that my officers follow what the state law says. If I detect abuses among my own people, I deal with them. We have disciplinary procedures there. If we see abuses among federal government or other agencies, we have certain avenues to report that to see that it's dealt with. And I do think we need to remain vigilant with our federal government and our state government and our local ordinances and any elected position or any appointed law enforcement officer.
Well, Anything else, Sheriff Hammond? I appreciate your time very much, talking with my listener and me here at the David Tulis Show.
I can just tell you that the bottom line for me as sheriff is that my job is to, the best of my ability, protect the people of this county, sometimes from themselves and other times from those that would do harm to them, so that they could not pursue liberty and the pursuit of happiness. Those are things that are basic to our Constitution. We need to enforce them.
Well, this is David Tulis, and Sheriff Hammond, thank you for joining my listener and me here at the David Tulis Show. We are here at AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio. I wanted to. We've been talking with Sheriff Jim Hammond, who says that his sheriff's department largely. Hold on. Can you come back to the mic for a second? I've got another call. Maybe this is David Tulis. Caller, you're on the air. We have just a minute. Well, we don't have that caller. Again, thank you, Sheriff Hammond. This is David Tulis, and our show is here at AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio. Wanted to make sure that if you are not a member of Trade Bank of Chattanooga, that you join our station. Trade Bank is involved in bartering. We and it helps improve cash flow from among 400 local businesses, large and small, in every field. Learn more by calling Jürgen Mutz at 877-2202. This is David Tulis. Thanks for joining us. Hi, I'm David Tulis, inviting you to make the move with me 9 to 11 a.m. weekdays here at AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio. The David Tulis Show, featuring Nuganomics.com for Chattanooga and beyond. 9 to 11 a.m. weekdays.
If the South would have won, we'd have had it made.
Any way that you kill somebody when they're innocent and defenseless is detestable.
My biological mother was 7.5 months pregnant when she had a saline abortion, which was meant to burn me both inside and out. And the doctors have also said that I should be blind. And